Hello, everybody. My name is Richard Barrett, and I live in London at the moment. I usually spend my summers in Italy, and I did this year. And but right now, I'm back in rainy London. I know we have 300 or 400 people from all over the world, so welcome wherever you are. I'm going to start the presentation now, and then I will have time for questions towards the end. So please send in your questions on the chat box, and there will be time for me to respond to you personally at the end of the seminar. So now I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to pull up the I'm going to pull up my, not my emails, but this presentation, which is ready to go. And here we go. So let's get started. And please take notes if you want to, and write down any questions that you may have. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So the first question we always ask is, who am I? Well, I'm the founder of the Barrett Values Center, and the mission of the center is to create a values-driven world where all people, organizations, and societies thrive. What the Barrett Values Center does is an organization that maps the values of organizations, of leaders, and of nations. Now, I'm also the president of the Academy for the Advancement of Human Values. This is something I started a couple of years ago, and you can log on to that website and find out the things that I'm doing around deep personal transformation and societal transformation. So the mission of the Academy is to discover, incubate, and develop ideas and concepts that support the evolution of human consciousness. So let's start with this statement. Organizations grow and develop in the same way as individuals, by successfully mastering their needs at each stage of development. Yes, as individual and organization, there are different stages of development, and also there are different stages of leadership too. So I'm going to talk about that this afternoon. So here are the 7 stages of organizational development. I'm going to go through them in detail, so we don't have to look at this now. And in a future webinar next week, I will be looking at the origins of this model. But basically, it's a model based on Abraham Maslow, with the first 3 or 4 levels. And then what I did was I expanded the upper levels of Maslow's model to give more justification to different needs at different levels. So there are 7 levels of organizational development, 7 levels of personal development, 7 levels of societal development, and they all follow the same pattern. So here you have the origins of the model. So this was Maslow's model, where he said that we tend to satisfy our needs in a particular order. First of all, our physiological needs. We need air, water, food, and shelter to survive. Then we have our emotional and safety needs, which include love and belonging and self-esteem. And then we have our self-actualization needs, the desire to become more than we are, a desire to find out who we really are. So our basic well-being arises from the satisfaction of the earlier needs, the physiological, safety, love, and self-esteem needs. And unless we satisfy those needs, we don't feel happy. So we call these deficiency needs. So Maslow called them deficiency needs. We are unhappy if these needs are not met, but once they're met, we don't pay much more attention to them. And he called these self-actualization needs our growth needs. So what I did to build the model, the Barrett model, I expanded this idea of self-actualization in the sense of becoming the best that one can become. And I broke it down into 4 different levels. And I gave new labels to the existing levels. So this is the 7 levels of organizational development. The first 3 levels are all about the drive for stability, survival, safety, and security. Then we get to the transformation level, which is absolutely necessary for growth and evolution. And once we get past that level, then we can move into the higher levels, which are all about driving for profitable growth. But unless you get these first three levels in place, you can't move to the fourth and you can't move to the higher levels in order to have a highly successful organization. Actually, the best organizations are what I call full spectrum organizations. And so when I ask organizations, what are your values? The values that they have show up at different levels. Now, when an organization specifies its values, and I notice that there are values at every level of consciousness, then I call that a full spectrum organization. It's an organization that can actually respond to all possible challenges that it may face. So it's a viable organization. It is focused on relationships between employees and the company and the leaders and with customers. It focuses also on performance. How can we be highly efficient and highly productive? And then there's the level of evolution. So this is where we begin to get from the employees, what are their ideas? It's not about managing them, but it's about involving them and giving them a voice in the evolution of the company and getting their ideas about how the company could grow and evolve. And then we come to alignment. Alignment means that everybody is working towards the same purpose and shares the same values. So we're like a very cohesive team. This is the level of team alignment. And then comes the level of collaborating with our partners, collaborating with our suppliers, collaborating with our customers, and collaborating with society. And finally, contribution. It's about the organization actually making a contribution to society. So here you have the 7 levels of consciousness which organizations need to focus on in order to become highly successful. Let's take each level in turn and just say a little more about that. So at the first level, it's about financial viability, stability of the organization, and the health of the employees. Your company has to be profitable and financially stable. It needs to focus on the long-term sustainability and not just on short-term results. It also provides a safe and comfortable working environment for people. So here are some of the things we need to think about. Without profits or access to continuing stream of funds, such as organizations or not-for-profit organizations, the organizations will quickly perish. So we need inflow of money or cash in order to make an organization successful. And every organization needs to focus on financial viability and stability. It's a primary concern. If you don't have that stability, then you're living day to day, week to week, month to month, looking at your income, looking at your expenses, and it gets very, very stressful. So we need financial viability. Now, when companies become too focused on financial viability, they develop an unhealthy relationship to the short term and shareholder value. The companies quoted on the stock market very often are just focused on short-term results and the distribution of profits to shareholders. Now, it's very interesting that private companies, the ones that are held by the original owners, tend to put about 9% of their profits into research and development and innovation, whereas companies quoted on the stock market only tend to put 2% of their profits into research and innovation because the demands of the shareholders are such that the shareholders want to make money. So it's very often the private organizations are more successful and more innovative. Now, when it's focused on money in the short term and satisfying the needs of the financial markets, The leaders become preoccupied with that to the exclusion of all other factors, including the needs of employees. Every month, they look at the data and they say, or look at the dashboard and say, did we make money this month? And when they focus like that every month on financial results, if they are not doing so well, then they start focusing on cost reduction. And cost reduction has a very unhealthy result in terms of employee happiness, because employees never know whether they're going to lose their jobs or not. So we don't want to get into that type of situation. We want to avoid that. We want to focus on the long-term sustainability, the financial sustainability of the organization. Now let's get to the second level of consciousness. So this is about harmonious interpersonal relationships and good internal communications. In these companies which have mastered this level of consciousness, people walk into the office and they smile and greet each other warmly. It's like a family. There's a healthy sense of respect, and customers feel their needs are cared for. Just think for a moment, is that your organization? When you walk into your organization, do you feel like it's a family, or is it really hard for people to get together? Is it very corrosive, or is it very toxic, the culture? Well, we want it to be very cohesive in terms of relationships and very respectful. And so the critical issue at this stage of development is to create a sense of loyalty and a sense of belonging among employees, and a sense of caring and connection between the organization, its customers, and suppliers. If you don't have that sense of caring, well, employees feel that and customers feel that. Customers love to be involved with an organization that cares about their needs. So the precondition for creating a sense of belonging are open communication, mutual respect, and conflict resolution. We don't let conflicts keep on going on. We tackle them immediately. There is openness in terms of communication. Everybody in the organization knows what's going on. There are no big secrets. So when the leaders are more focused on their own success rather than the success of the organization, they begin to compete with each other. When leaders display territorial behavior, then they get into blame, internal competition, and internal politics. And obviously, this is not good for the company, because a lot of energy goes into this blame and internal competition. Energy which could be going into productivity and efficiency. So we move into the performance. This is all about efficiency, productivity, quality, and professionalism. It's a striving for excellence is what this level is all about. And high performing systems. So the organization understands that it needs to have strong systems and processes that work for the employees. It trains people to be excellent at doing their jobs. And in these sorts of organizations, the employees are proud to tell others which company they work for. Are you proud to tell people which company you work for? Do you have a sense of that your company is focused on performance, relationships, and viability? So those are what I call those deficiency needs. They're absolutely fundamental to the success of the organization. You've got to get them right if you're going to have a highly successful organization. So at this stage of development, the organization is focused on staying relevant to its customers, pursuing excellence by adopting best practices, and constantly implementing productivity and efficiency enhancement, always looking, how can we do this better? Now, a precondition for this performance level of consciousness is continuous improvement. We want to focus on continuous improvement. If we don't, we'll get left behind. Our competitors will beat us. They'll become more innovative, and they will just beat us in the marketplace. Another problem at this level is when organizations become very bureaucratic. This happens at this third stage of development. When there's a lack of trust between people, then the, the organization becomes more and more hierarchical, more and more structured, and there's more and more bureaucratic control. Do you work in an organization like that, where there's a lot of bureaucratic control? Usually, the larger the organization gets, the more bureaucratic it becomes, and the less efficient. Now we come to a very fundamentally important level of consciousness of the evolution. This is all about empowering employees so that they can bring their ideas forward. And there's continuous learning going on here. So there's innovation going on and employee empowerment. So the organization moves forward through innovation and continuous improvement. It's adaptable and it's resilient. So employees feel empowered and have the courage to ask tough questions. And it's okay to make mistakes in this organization because we're always trying to do better and better. And if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. You just move on and keep on trying to do the best you can. So to fully respond to the challenges of this level of consciousness, the organization must actively seek employees' ideas and opinions. Ask our employees, what would be your solution to this situation? How can we improve what we are doing? So for many leaders and managers, this is a new role. Leaders and managers get to be leaders and managers because they know what they're supposed to do and they tell people what to do. But actually, employees don't like that. They like to be involved. And the best leaders and managers are always inviting the employees to bring their ideas forward. Also, at this level, we have accountability. So people feel accountable and they can be trusted to be accountable. Teamwork is encouraged and more attention is given to personal development and relationship skills. And diversity is seen as a positive asset. So accountability, you will need to know that you can rely on your team members and they will be, if they say they're going to do something, they will be accountable for that result. So a precondition for success at this fourth level of consciousness is encouraging all employees to think like entrepreneurs and stimulate innovation so that new products and services can be developed to respond to the market opportunities. So constant renewal, constant new ideas, constant creative thinking is what is required. This requires the organization to be flexible and take calculated risks. Now we move to the fifth level of consciousness. This is an internally cohesive organization that has a capacity for collective action because everybody shares the same purpose, the same vision, the same values. They're all heading in the same direction. They may have different jobs and they may have different missions inside the organization, but they know where they are going. And consequently, there are high levels of trust and a deep sense of purpose. And these are fun organizations to work in because there's a lot of team spirit. So the key to success at this level of consciousness is the establishment of a strong, positive, unique cultural identity that differentiates the organization from its competitors. In my next webinar next week, I'm going to be talking about how do you build a strong culture? What are the requirements for having a cohesive culture? I'm not going to go into too much detail on that right here. Now, a shared vision, a shared purpose. That's the new way. And the old way was, we all do our thing, we work in silos, we don't really talk to each other. But in this new way of being, where we have this critical requirement for having a shared vision of the future that actually inspires employees. And we agree a shared set of values and a shared set of behaviors that helps us to make decisions so that we know that everybody's working to the same hymn book, if you like. We're all singing the same song. We're all heading in the same direction. Now, a precondition for success at this stage of development is to develop a climate of trust. I need to know as a team leader that I can trust my team. My team needs to know that they can trust each other, and my team needs to know that they can trust me. So I have my team's interest at heart, and I am working on the management team, and I need to know that I can trust my leader. My leader needs to know that he or she can trust me. Now we come to the sixth level of consciousness, where we've developed a high level of internal cohesion and connectedness. And now we focus on external connectedness through strong collaboration with other organizations, with our suppliers, and also with our customers. So there's a strong focus at this level of consciousness on leadership development. Leaders are making a sustainable difference inside and outside the organization. There's a collaborative way of working and a strong, cohesive environment for staff, for customers and suppliers, and also a sense of working with the local community, a connection between the organization and the local community. One of the things that the COVID experience has really brought to light is resilience. Organizations need to be resilient. And in order to become resilient, you need to have a great collaborative relationship with your suppliers, because what happened during COVID is that some organizations couldn't keep on going forward because their suppliers dried up. And so we need to be able to work collaboratively, not just with our suppliers, but also with the local community where we operate and with the families of our employees. So leadership development is really important. I've already said that at this stage of development. The organization should support employees in becoming all they can become, both professionally and personally. I mean, becoming all you can, encouraging you to grow and develop professionally, learning new skills and talents, and also personally in the sense of learning emotional intelligence skills, learning how to, what is important, what is it to you, what is your personal mission, what is it that you love to do, and having a job where you get to do what you love to do. So employees must feel that the company cares about them, cares about their futures, and cares about their needs. And more than anything, cares about their families. This is another example that I recently picked up from Brazil, where going through this COVID crisis, this company actually, one of the things it did was to make home improvement products. And in order to, during this crisis, what they did was, in order to establish and care for their employees, they actually offered the home improvements to their employees and their families in their own homes. And this was a very positive measure because employees felt like the company cared about them, cared about their family. It was a really good move, which has helped to build a strong sense of cohesion and strong culture in the organization. So companies at this level go the extra mile to make sure they're being responsible global citizens. Finally, we get to the seventh level, where the organization begins to care about the well-being of society, the well-being of the planet, and future generations. So there's a big focus on here on environmental and sustainability. For people in this organization, ethics is not about compliance, but doing what they believe is right in their hearts. By doing their jobs well, people know they're serving society and serving future generations. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, if you don't know about them, find out more about them, because this is one thing that organizations need to do. They need to sign up to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, look at what they do, and find out how they can do it better and support the whole world in achieving a higher level of sustainability. So the critical issue at this level of consciousness is developing a deep sense of social responsibility by caring about social justice, human rights, and the ecology of the environment. Many companies who make products which are produced in sweatshops in the Far East have been hammered by public opinion and have had to change the way they operate because they weren't operating with social justice. Some of them are not caring about the ecology. Some of them are not caring about human rights. This is becoming fundamentally important to have a successful organization because people, customers, vote with their wallets. They will seek out companies that are doing good for the world and good for humanity, and they will tend to go away from organizations that are not. So ethics is fundamentally important at this stage of development. So now let's look at how all of that relates to leadership. And as we got the 7 stages of organizational development, we also have 7 stages of leadership development, or 7 levels of leadership development. And on the left, you see the different categories of leaders. A crisis manager who looks after the survival and financial stability of the company. A relationship manager who takes care that all of people's needs are met and good communication. A manager who looks after the performance. A facilitator, innovator who practices continuous renewal and helps people to grow and develop together. Then you've got the authentic leader, the leader who is full of integrity and provides a shared vision and shared values. And then the mentor partner leader who helps organization grow by coaching employees and developing leadership development programs. And then the visionary leader who sees into the distance and can see what's coming and sets the goals and the direction for the future of the company. Well, these are not all separate people. The idea is that you as a leader grow and develop and then take on all of these aspects. So these first 3 levels, if I just go back now, crisis manager, relationship manager, performance manager, it's really all about management. It's about management. These aren't really leaders, they're just managers. And then as a leader, we go through a transition and we become a leader. And that's when we become a leader, when we move into and understand and can work with these higher levels of consciousness. So let me go through these different stages of becoming a leader, as I did with the organizational development. So the focus of the crisis manager is always on the financial viability and stability of the organization and the health of employees. So this person, when a leader is operating from this level, he's looking to build stability and viability. They understand the importance of profit and shareholder returns, and they manage their budgets meticulously. They're very cautious in complex situations, but are willing to take risks that do not compromise the organization's resilience and future. And they maintain a long-term perspective while dealing with short-term issues and goals. Now, the relationship manager focuses on the interpersonal relationships and making those relationships harmonious and with good internal communications. So they invest a lot of time in building relationships. The leader who walks around the shop floor or walks around the offices and knows the names of the people who work in the organization. This is what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the leader who is constantly in his office and only working with the leadership team and is never seen by employees. No, the relationship manager type of leader is one that is very much in touch with the employees and with their families and knows many of the people personally. They believe in open communication and they acknowledge people by giving them praise for a job well done, because everybody wants to feel that they are recognized. And so a big role of the relationship manager is to hand out praise to staff who've done very well. So these leaders are very accessible to their employees and their customers. Now comes the performance manager, and this person is very focused on efficiency, excellence, productivity, quality, and professionalism. They bring logic and science to their work. They use metrics to manage performance. They have dashboards to see how well the organization is doing. They've got these strong analytical skills. They're experts in their fields. They think strategically and move to capitalize on opportunities. Very rational in their decision making, and they plan and prioritize their work. You know this type of person. They're very logical, efficient, productive. Whereas the facilitator, innovator, is somebody who is very adaptable and is actually focused on helping employees give their points of view. So there's continuous renewal and continuous learning. They seek advice and build consensus and empower their staff. They give people a sense of responsible freedom. That's what I call accountability, responsible freedom. They resist the temptation to micromanage people because people hate being micromanaged. They focus on equality and diversity. They're adaptable and flexible. And above all, they're focused on continuous learning. They actively engage in the development of their staff. The authentic leader is someone who walks the talk and has a capacity for collective action. Is a role model of trust, a role model of a person who demonstrates integrity at all times, who promotes a set of shared values and lives by those values, demonstrates those values, and has behaviors which align with those values. They're living examples of values-based leadership. I'll be talking more about values-based leadership in my next webinar next week. Above all, these people walk their talk. They build internal cohesion and focus on creating a shared purpose. Now we get to the sixth level, the mentor, the partner, the leader who knows how to support the leadership team and other people in the organization. And they have a strong sense of collaboration. They create a working environment not driven by silos, but driven by collaboration. So they also create mutually beneficial partnerships and strategic alliances with other groups. They collaborate with customers and suppliers to create win-win situations. They know that their future and their resilience is dependent on having strong relations with the people that they work with and with the other organizations that they work with. And lastly, we come to the visionary leader. This is the one who's focused on the well-being of the organization, but not just the well-being of the organization. It's focused on the well-being of the planet and future generations. I've been saying for a long time that business is a wholly owned subsidiary of society, and society is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. So if the environment crashes, society will crash and business will crash. Now, we've just had a perfect example of society crashing with COVID-19. So business is a wholly owned subsidiary of society, and when society crashed, business crashed, and that's what we've seen. Some companies profited from this COVID-19 response, but many, many others went bankrupt. Many, many others suffered because the business is dependent on having a well-functioning society. And leaders at this level of consciousness understand that, and they do everything they can to support societies, to support their well-being of their employees, to support the well-being of their local community. I don't care whether you're a big organization or a small organization, caring about the community where you work is fundamentally important for building resilience, long-term resilience of the company. So visionary leaders have this holistic perspective. They care about the organization, but they also care about the world. They care about current employees, They also care about future generations, about the families of their employees. They see the purpose of the organization from a societal perspective. They're committed to social responsibility and ethics, and they're not prepared to compromise long-term outcomes for short-term gains. So I'm reaching the end of this particular presentation, and you can find out more about leadership and from my book, The New Leadership Paradigm. I wrote this book actually 10 years ago, but it is just as topical today as it was then. There are some interesting aspects to this book. First of all, I look at different aspects of leadership. So first of all, leading self. That's fundamentally important. If you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead a team. And then there's leading a team, and then leading an organization, and leading a society. So there are different parts of this book. It's quite a big book. It's over 300 pages, and many people tell me this is the best book on leadership they've ever read. And I think it's because of the depth that I go into in this book. Even though I wrote it in 2010, it's absolutely applicable today. I already had this idea of the visionary leader, the long-term perspective. So you see there on the cover, it says leading self, leading others, leading an organization, and leading society. There are different sections in that book. Now, I've also created in the last few months 18 e-learning courses, and one of them is called, well, the 5 of them have to do with leadership. The new leadership paradigm, which talks about the big picture of leadership. And then there are the modules on leading self, leading a team, leading an organization, and leading a society. So 5 self-paced learning e-learning courses, which you can purchase from the Barrett Academy website. Oh, here's some information on that. So the e-learning courses cover personal evolution, organizational evolution, societal evolution, and leadership development. And if you go to the Academy and sign up for e-learning courses, you'll get 3 of them free. You don't have to pay anything. You immediately get 3 free courses. The first one is on living a values-driven life. And then there's information courses on the well-being of nations and the Humanity Awareness Initiative. So you've got nothing to lose by signing up for these e-learning courses. After that, you can purchase courses, but you get these 3 courses free of charge, and they appear in your dashboard. And as you add more courses, they will show up also in your dashboard. Here are other organizational e-learning courses, which you'll find in those 18 e-learning courses. The fundamentals of organizational transformation. I'll be talking a lot about that in my next webinar next week. This time we talked about the 7 stages of organizational development, and I actually go into much more detail than I have done today in this e-learning course. And then the last webinar I do, which will be, I think, on the 2nd of November, is on evolutionary coaching, how to coach your employees. If you're an actual coach yourself, this is interesting. But as your leader, you will need to know how to coach employees. So next session, 19th of October at 6 p.m. CET, building a values-driven organization. So I'm going to stop there. And I know I've only been going for 40 minutes, but I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. And we'll go into that part now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to listen to your questions. And here's Navina. A round of applause for Navina.
Hello again. Hello, everybody. So we're going on to the questions now, the question that the participants have sent throughout your performance. So first question, what practical advice would you give on how to encourage and stimulate employees to improve further?
Well, I'm going to cover that to a large extent in the next session, but I'm going to talk about it right now. You see, we all have needs, okay? Every employee has needs, and the needs you have actually correspond to the stage of development that you're at, and I'm going to describe those stages of development. So, for um, for young people in their 20s and 30s, they're at what I call the fourth stage of development, which is the individuating stage. And this stage is all about freedom and autonomy and having the opportunity to try different things, to have different roles and responsibilities, and to experience lots of different things so that they can find out what it is they're really good at. So the first answer to this question, if you have employees in that age group, what you need to be able to do to encourage them is to give them some freedom and accountability and allow them to explore different things, have some sort of program for them so they can do that. Now, those are the people at the individuating stage up to the age late 30s. And in the 40s, we move into what I call the self-actualizing stage. Now, these people are slightly different. They have different needs. They want to find meaning and purpose in their work. They want to go to work and feel a sense of giving the gift that they have. You know, everybody has gifts and talents, and we want to be able to find them and then give them in our organization. So these people in their 40s really want to have the need to find out who they really are and what it is, the gifts that they want. And they want to work on that gift. They want to be placed in opportunities and positions where they can experience a sense of purpose by giving their gift. And so as a leader, you need to be able to understand which stage of development your employees are at and what are their needs. And then the next stage of development, which is in the 50s, is it's all about making a difference. So first of all, you found out what you're good at, what you love to do, what brings joy to you, and then you want to use that and make a difference in the world. And that's what the people in their 50s really want to do. And in order to do that, they must be able to connect. They must have a high level of emotional intelligence, because if you can't connect with people, you can't make a difference. So it's fundamentally important to have a strong emotional intelligence skills. So these are most of the employees you will have in your 20s and 30s, in your 40s and in your 50s, and they all have different needs. And understanding what their needs are is the way to encourage your employees to grow and develop, and they will love you for it, and they will bring their whole selves to work because they're getting their needs met. So I'll talk more about that in our next session.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I noticed that the colors and numbers of stages are exactly like 7 chakras or energy centers. Is it a coincidence, or is there a connection to that concept?
Absolutely fundamental connection to that concept. Originally I wasn't sure about it, and then 20 some years ago when I developed this, and then in the last 5 or 10 years, it became very obvious to me that the 7 levels model actually corresponds to the 7 chakras. And in some of my writings, I've written 13 books. One of my books is called The Ego Soul Dynamics of Physical and Mental Well-being. And this book actually makes the link between the stages of development and the chakra system. So now the chakra system is very interesting because these are energy centers. And so when you fail to master a stage of development, you have an energy imbalance at that chakra level, and that shows up as ill health. That shows up as sickness. I can give you 2 examples. I know this is really going into some depth, but somebody asked the question, so I'll do it. Now, one of the difficult stages for women is the self-actualizing stage, which is the 5th stage of development. It's the 5th chakra. It's self-expression. It's the throat chakra and the upper body. And when women in their 40s have a husband, children, and aging parents, they tend to put the needs of these three groups ahead of their own self-expression needs. And what happens is they develop breast cancer. And so self-expression, when you fail to fully express who you are at the fifth stage of development for a woman, that is a problem. Now, the next stage is difficult for men. That's the integrating stage, which I mentioned in the 50s. And I mentioned this very person. I made this a point that I said that these people want to make a difference and they have to have emotional intelligence skills. And so there is a link between the sixth chakra, which that is, and the second chakra, and that is about relationships. And so when particularly men, when they were boys, they were told, don't show your feelings, be tough. And they didn't know, so they don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to make relationships. And so these people finish up in the late 50s and early 60s with prostate cancer. That link between the sixth chakra and the second chakra. So, yeah, that's a whole new different webinar, and maybe we can do something on that. But that's all I'm going to say for now, and you can look at my books and find out more about that.
It is definitely the interesting topic. Go on to the next question. How to fill the gap or inconsistencies on lower levels of leadership development when higher levels are fully filled in?
Okay, so this is interesting. What you're describing there is what I call an NGO, a not-for-profit organization, which are very, very focused on the upper levels of consciousness. They want to make a difference. They have a purpose. They have a lot of compassion and empathy, but they're absolutely hopeless in the first three levels, which is on efficiency, productivity. They may not be very good at relationships, and they're certainly not very good with money. And so what you just described is, for me, a typical NGO. I'm not saying all NGOs are like that. No, they're not. But that's what they tend to be like. They tend to focus on the upper level. So they need to get grounded. They need to focus on the lower levels, and in order to be successful, in order to become full spectrum. Now, most private organizations are exactly the opposite way around. The private organizations are focused on money at level one. They may or may not be focused on relationships, but they're certainly focused on performance at level three. But they're not very good in the higher stages of development. And that's where they need to focus. So you've got this very interesting dichotomy between for-profit organizations and not-for-profit organizations. And typically that's what the way they fall. Not-for-profits are good at the higher levels, not so good at the lower levels. For-profit are quite good at the lower levels, but not good at the higher levels.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, isn't family kind of culture in an organization anathema to good performance?
Anathema, did you say?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, well, it depends on what type of family you're talking about. I'm talking here about friendship. I'm talking here about collaboration at a personal level. I'm talking about greeting people when they come in. So then I walk into the office, I feel that a sense of family, in the sense of not these dependent relationships that we tend to get in families, but healthy families, healthy relationships where I respect you and you respect me, where I speak kindly to you. I don't shout at you. I don't tell you what to do and be aggressive. No, I bring a sense of, yeah, a sense of equality and a sense of, you're a human being, like I'm a human being. We both have needs. Maybe some of your needs are not being met. How can I help you to meet your needs? That type of relationship. And that's what I meant by family. Okay, because families can be very dysfunctional, as we all know. I think everybody's family is dysfunctional to a certain extent. I mean, you have to admit that, but we want to create a little dysfunction as possible by building a healthy sense of respect for one another and treating each other kindly. That's the thing, treating each other kindly.
Yes, I agree that that's the fundamental thing to do in every society.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next question. Which leadership practices are the most important in engaging employees?
Well, I think the most engaging employees is to recognize that it's level 4 consciousness and level 5 consciousness. Level 4 is really about seeking to empower your employees by including them in discussions and also asking their advice, getting their ideas, because that makes people feel like wanted. And then at the next level, the level 5, it's really about what is the overarching purpose that we can all align around so that we can feel like we're all making a difference in the world. So these are level 4 and level 5 are absolutely fundamental to create a cohesive organization where employees feel that they matter and they feel that they can actually their needs are being met by what I call a deliberately developmental organization. In other words, an organization that understands where people are in the stages of development and what their needs are and takes appropriate action to make sure that employees get their needs met.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, in the beginning of starting with a few possible employees, should I think and plan only until the stage 3?
Yeah, step by step is the way to go. Yeah, if you're starting a business, okay, first of all, you need a great idea and you need some money, you need some backing. And so that's step one. Okay, so I've got a great idea, a business idea, I've got some money. Now I need some people to work with, and I need to be able to work with those people in a healthy way. So that's the relationships, level 2. And then the next stage is, well, how can we've got a functioning organization, we want to make it efficient, we want to make it productive. So these are the first 3 stages. The first 3 things I have to think about in building an organization is viability, good relationships inside the organization and with customers, and being productive and efficient. Once I've got that settled in, these are what Maslow called deficiency needs, then I can start to focus on all the other. If you stop there, you will just be another company like all the rest. You won't be that successful. But once you move beyond that point, that's when you really start to develop an innovative, creative company that will be a leader in that particular field. So, good question.
Okay, on to the next one. This one is a little bit longer, so bear with me. Regarding level 7 on both organizational and leadership development, do you see the change in beliefs and values that Generation Z and other younger generations have influencing the way we train leaders and or the way organizations are led more than ever before, or will that change be more or less unnoticeable? I'm asking primarily because of the gap that might exist between generations, thus leaders will have to adapt to both in a way.
So, this is a very complex issue, which I've thought a lot about. Now, basically, it doesn't matter which generation you're born into. You will move through the same stages of development, and I will describe those in detail in my next week. Now, what is changing? Well, let me just say the first 3 stages of development, surviving, conforming, and differentiating, go up to the age of about 21 and 22. Surviving stages about up to the age of 2, conforming up to the age of 7 or 8, and then differentiating. Now, these 3 stages correspond to the dominance of your mind and your brain. So the baby, when it's born, it has a reptilian mind brain, which is dominant, and all it's focused on is survival. It just needs to get its survival needs met. Then around the age of 2, what happens is the limbic mind brain, the emotional mind brain becomes dominant, and now we're looking for safety, and we're looking to get our love needs met, our belonging needs met in our parental framework of existence. And then around 7 or 8, the neocortex becomes dominant, but it's still growing and developing until the age of 21 and 22 is, you see, you don't have a fully functioning brain until your early 20s. This is why teenagers do really stupid things. I mean, I was a teenager once. I did really stupid things. Why? Because my brain wasn't fully developed. And you see, so those first three stages are kind of fixed. Now, what's different? What's different is that over time, our parents became more self-actualized. So if you're born into a poor family in an authoritarian regime, you're not going to notice these differences in between Generation Z, Generation X, because they will be too repressive. Whereas in the free world, we're beginning to notice this, and it happens because children are being brought up by more and more enlightened parents. And so what happens is that the young children in their 20s, well, young adults in their 20s, actually move through the upper stages of development more quickly because they have a better start in life. And that, I think, is one of the factors that plays out in these different generations. I think it's much more complex than that, because we have to think about how, what is the relationship to technology and social media and all of that. However, the stages of development are absolutely fixed. I've looked at all sorts of people. I have friends who are individuating in their 20s, quite a lot of friends, and of these different generations, and they agree with me that actually what they're finding is they're going through the same stages, but actually they find it easier to go through the different stages of development. So a long question, a long complex answer, and I don't pay an awful lot of attention to these so-called generations, because I think you find out more by considering the stages of development and to what extent the child and the teenager is actually helped to move through the higher stages of development when they become individuate and self-actualized.
Okay, and the last question.
Okay.
Is level 7 a self-obtainable level through emotional intelligence exclusively, or there can be leaders who could help you grow into a visionary leader? Excellent lesson. Greetings from Morph Networks from Belgrade.
Can you grow, or can you be educated into level 7 consciousness? It's for me, and I've been through all the stages of development because I'm 75 years old. I mean, I many of the books I wrote when I was in my late 50s, 60s, and the early 70s. So I write from experience of living through all of these different levels. You can encourage. If you're a leader, let's say in your 60s, and you've been through these stages, you can encourage and you can mentor people to move through the stages. And that's what a lot of the work that I do in mentoring younger people to move through the stages of development. So can you become a visionary? Well, maybe and maybe not. Each of us is born with a soul-given gifts and talents. And some of those gifts and talents are not to be visionary. It's to be the best at what you can do. For example, your gift and talent may be caring for children. And as souls, all we want to be able to do is fully express our gifts and talents. So not everybody is born to be a visionary leader. No, they're not. And I think you have to face up to that fact and find out, well, what is it? What are my gifts and talents? And how can I find meaning and purpose in my life by expressing my gifts and talents? Now, that's one of the things I talk about in my book, The Leadership Development. Not everybody, it seems like as you progress and get better at your job, naturally you move into a leadership position. But it may not be naturally what is you want to do. It may not be naturally where your gifts and talents lie. There are people who are naturally visionary leaders, and there are people who are not. So the most important thing is to find out what is your soul expression and live that, because that is how you find well-being. It's not about being better than this person or better than that person. It's about being the best you can become by living your soul purpose.
Okay, thank you. That would be it when it comes to questions for this lecture. On behalf of Exit Foundation and the Visa Company, I would like to thank you for participating in our conscious revolution and being a part of it, and giving us great insight and an amazing lecture this Monday. And also thank you to all participants for being a part of our adventure. And see you next Monday, 19th of October, for the next lecture.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Will you be there, Navina?
I hope so.
Well, I hope so too.
Thank you very much once more. Bye-bye.
Bye.